Hi, this is Derek Murphy from creativeindie.com. Today we're going to talk about ebooks, specifically what is an ebook, how to make one, how to open and edit one, and how to publish one. First of all, an ebook is just an electronic book, so it could be a file that you're going to publish on Kindle or another ebook store that people can download and read on their ebook readers, or it could be a PDF that's formatted well for PDF so that people can download it on their computers and read it with no program. They just need a PDF viewer. Usually when we're talking about an ebook, it could be either one, but I don't recommend publishing a book from your website alone because it's very hard to get traffic and you couldn't sell it for a lot of money. It's much better to publish ebooks with Amazon, Kindle, iBooks, because there's a store that has an active readership where it's much more likely they will find and buy your book. And that's good for earnings, but also to grow your platform. You can do a combination of both, but unless you're really building a platform around your website and making yourself an expert, there's really no point in having a high-priced PDF, unless you want to give away something free on your website to build your email list, in which case having a PDF ebook that's some kind of a guide is actually a pretty good idea. And the nice thing about having a PDF for that purpose is because a PDF is something anybody can download and read easily. PDFs are usually formatted well so that they're designed pretty well, they look pretty good, that's good for your brand and your image. So you could do that if you want to build your email list. You might want to have some short guide, 10 best ways to do something that you give away on your website in exchange for their email, and that could be a PDF ebook. But what we're going to talk about is the other kind of ebook, which is something that you're going to make and publish so that it goes out to Kindle or iBooks or another big ebook store. Those kind of ebooks have to be very lightweight and mobile so that anybody can read them on any device. And the purpose of an ebook is that it's not fixed coding, it's not fixed design, so that anybody can read it and they can change the fonts, they can make the fonts larger depending on their own personal comfort preferences for reading. So that kind of an ebook is usually what people are talking about when they talk about publishing online or publishing ebooks. And ebook is just a word that means any kind of electronic book, but more specifically, they're probably talking about an EPUB, EPUB. An EPUB is a certain file type, and that file type you can upload to iBooks or almost all other ebook stores. They rely on EPUB. So even if you're uploading a Word document and they're converting it for you, they're probably making an EPUB that they can send out to their store that people can buy and they can download. The exception is Kindle, because Kindle uses the .mobi format, which is MOBI, but it's almost exactly the same as an EPUB. It's just kind of a tweak. So you don't have to worry about making a Mobi file for Kindle. You just have to worry about making an EPUB because it's very simple, and I'll show you in future videos how to convert an EPUB into a Mobi, and then you can upload the Mobi file directly to Kindle. What an EPUB is basically like a zip file. A zip file are those compressed folders that you can use a zip opener application like WinRAR to open the folder and see the files inside. So what an EPUB has, there's an HTML document for most of the text. An HTML document is basically just code that says what needs to go where, and it also has all the words. It also has the style format, so there'll be a style sheet which tells the content how it should look. So that's how you would change the fonts or the size or custom embedding or any other stylistic choices. You would have that in the style document. The style document tells the ebook reader how to read that text and how to organize that text. Inside of your EPUB folder would also be any images, any extra information or content. What you don't want to do is add a lot of huge images or even like videos. You could embed a video inside of your EPUB, but most ebook stores have file size limitations, and Kindle actually charges you for the size of your document. So if you have a very picture-heavy document with a lot of high-resolution pictures, your file size is going to be really large, and Kindle might charge you $1 or $2 just to deliver your file to the reader. So if you're not making $1 or $2 profit off each sale, you're actually losing money, or it's going to be really hard to publish that way. So you want to keep your ebook really light. I'll show you a hack that you can actually use to change your EPUB file into a .zip. If you just change the .epub to .zip, you should be able to change it into a zip file that you can open with WinRAR or another zip opener so you can see what files are inside. And then you could use an HTML editor or even the built-in text editor of your computer and open the HTML document and fix something. If you have a tiny fix you need to make, maybe there's one typo that you caught, that is a reasonable way to try to fix it, although there are much easier ways to edit EPUBs. So it's not a very useful hack, except if you're trying to learn how to put an EPUB together or what's inside. The program I recommend actually for editing an EPUB is Sigil, S-I-G-I-L. It's a free program you can download. It'll let you open your EPUB and edit it, and you can look at the regular view or the code view. It's kind of a lot like any normal text editor, but you can also see how everything fits together. You can make changes to the style sheet if you know what you're doing, but you've got to know some code. You can edit with Sigil. It's great if you already have an EPUB made and you just have to fix a couple typos. It's not so great if you have to change the style and you don't know what you're doing, because you really have to get into the code to do that. So it's not recommended for beginners. For beginners, if you want to just make an EPUB and publish it, the easiest thing to do is format your Word document correctly, use a free online converter and convert it to an EPUB file that's just ready to go. And then you can use Kindle Previewer, another free online program. You can download Kindle Previewer, drag and drop your EPUB into Kindle Previewer, and Kindle Previewer will automatically generate a Mobi version of the same file, which will work great as long as your EPUB verifies, is what they say. When you're making an EPUB, if you do it correctly and there's no coding problems or bugs, it'll verify. There's free online tools to verify your EPUB, or Sigil has a verify EPUB tool built in where you just click it and it'll tell you what the problems are. If there are problems and you have to troubleshoot it, that's going to be pretty difficult if you don't know what you're doing with EPUB coding. But if you keep it simple, you convert from your Word file to EPUB, it shouldn't introduce any bugs or problems, and it should be fine, and then you'll have a file you can use. The thing about EPUB is you don't want to try to control the design too much. With print formatting, you want everything to be fixed because you're going to make a PDF and it's going to look perfect everywhere, the same everywhere. So you're going to have to choose your fonts, your design, your spacing, your margins. Everything's going to be done, and it has to be done well so that it looks professional. With an EPUB, you don't want that stuff because you don't want a fixed layout EPUB that's the same for everybody unless you're doing children's books, and even then it might be a better idea just to have the picture with the text on top that's not fixed layout. For EPUB, you don't want special coding that tells the text what to do. You don't want too much of it, because, for example, if I set my body text to 0.90 and a certain font and a certain color, whenever anybody opens that EPUB up on their ebook reader, they're going to say, it doesn't look the same as all my other ebooks. It doesn't look the same as all the other files on my Kindle or my iPad, because they got used to reading ebooks a certain way. They got used to their ebooks looking a certain way, using whatever the default coding or settings of their reading device is. So when you have a new EPUB that looks differently because you've changed a lot of the style settings, they're going to say it doesn't look the same, or I can't change the size, or I can't make it bigger, or I like this other font better. They're just going to notice it looks different. So even if you think it looks good, it's not what they're used to. For an EPUB, you want to get rid of most of the coding. The only place you might want a little bit of coding, the first paragraph you might want not indented. It's not a big deal, but usually the first paragraph is left aligned, so there's no indent and it goes across the whole width of the device. The other paragraphs, you want a little bit of indenting, not very much. The other interesting thing is, depending on which ebook device they have, the indents, all that stuff is going to look different. So if you have maybe a 0.5 indent, that might look pretty wide on an old-fashioned Kindle Paperwhite, but it might look really small, almost unnoticeable on a new 6-inch Kindle Fire HD. Which is one of the problems with ebooks, is that no matter what you do, it's not going to look exactly the same everywhere. It depends on the device. And that's why you don't really want anything too tricky or complicated. All you want is your ebook to be readable and not to be confusing or not to be broken. And that's a danger of ebook formatting, is if you try to add too much design or style, it can be broken on some devices and you may not notice it if you don't test on every device, because there's hundreds of devices now. What you want your EPUB to do is just be readable and look good. It doesn't really matter if there's a drop cap on the first paragraph. It doesn't matter if it's not indented. It doesn't really matter if you embed fonts. I like to have specialty fonts on the chapter heading titles, but they're not really necessary, and they may be distracting or confusing. It's better to have something simple. And if you notice any mainstream published ebook, like a really big best-selling book, if you buy those ebooks, you'll notice they rarely use special fonts. It's almost always dead simple, no graphics, no illustration, no extra stuff, just really dead simple text. That's because it's easier and it's less likely to have errors, and that's why they do it, which is why I recommend the same thing. Although sometimes it can be nice, especially for maybe young adult dystopian romance, it's nice to have a little bit of graphics or design, especially for younger readers, because they appreciate those more. If it's more about the story, or if it's an adult book, just focus on having clear, readable typography. And you don't even have to you can set the body text to serif. You don't have to set the body text to Times New Roman or Garamond or anything. You can just say body text serif font, chapter headings sans serif font. That's really enough. You can set the spacing and you can set the size of the text a little bit if you want your chapter headings larger, for example, but you don't want to go overboard. You want to keep it really simple. That's a little bit about ebooks. There's a lot of tools to help you open ebooks or to view ebooks. You can't view an EPUB on your computer if you don't have any kind of an EPUB viewer. You need Adobe Digital Editions, or you need Calibre or Kindle Previewer, or there are free online EPUB viewers that you can use to open an EPUB, but all that usually means is that you can view it so that you can see what it looks like. But that doesn't mean you can edit it. Editing is something totally different. You're going to need Sigil to get in there and actually change the text or make changes to your EPUB document. You can't edit a Mobi file for Kindle at all. You'd have to edit the EPUB and then convert back to Mobi. But you probably aren't going to want to do any of that, because you're going to want to fix your Word document. If you're using Word, then you would just edit the Word document and reconvert to your EPUB and you'd be done. In some cases, you might be using another program for your writing, like Scrivener. If you're using Scrivener, you would edit the Scrivener file, save as an EPUB, and then if you want to make changes, you go back to the Scrivener file, the original file, and you change it again. I don't recommend Scrivener because I don't think it gives you as much control over the output of the EPUB if you're converting to EPUB. It does a fine job. If you're not picky, it'll work. If that's what's comfortable for you, use it. But if you want to make more changes to your EPUB or you want more control, I like to open my EPUBs up in Sigil and tweak things a little bit more. You can also just make a Word document and send it to Kindle, but unless you've done your Word document correctly, it's going to become a mess on Kindle. Converting PDF to EPUB is not a good idea. It almost never works well. Kindle and Ebook Baby, other sites say you can submit a PDF, but usually you formatted your PDF for print, so it has page numbers and headers and a bunch of stuff that you don't need in an EPUB. So it's a whole bunch of extra garbage that they've got to screen out, and you're probably going to get kind of a jumbled mess. It's not a good idea to convert from PDF to EPUB. If you do your Word file correctly, it should work wonders. But it's the same thing. If you've formatted your Word file for print with headers and page numbers and a lot of other stuff, and you just send that file to convert it to an EPUB, it's probably not going to turn out so well. So instead of formatting your book for print, you can format your book. For example, if you're going to use Smashwords, you want to have a very, very simple Word document that's made the right way so that you can send it to Smashwords, and Smashwords can automatically convert it to EPUB easily without a lot of hassle. That's basically the same formatting you would do for your Word document if you're going to send it to Kindle, and then it should look okay also. I'll show you a few tricks. We're going to format in Word and probably in InDesign for print. You can also convert from InDesign. You can output to EPUB, but it's also not perfect. It does a good job, but it keeps all the formatting. And like I said, you don't want formatting on your body text. So when I convert from InDesign to EPUB, I have to go through the EPUB and strip out a lot of the specialty coding because I don't want any formatting on my body text or a lot of other places. So I'll have to remove a lot of code before it gets clean. The other way to do it is to start from total scratch and to use a Word to clean HTML generator so that you take your Word file and you strip everything out and you get very clean HTML. Then you put that up in Sigil and you start building your EPUB from scratch, which works and is very clean, but probably too technical and not worth doing. If you can format in Word and use an automatic converter to make an EPUB, that's going to be the most time efficient. And if you do it right, that's going to work well for you. So that's really what I'm going to focus on in the future videos about EPUB formatting, which I'll put on DIYbookformats.com. Thanks, bye-bye.